We welcome you back to the Steam Room.
Oh, yeah.
And our first episode of season 3.
And you talk about special guests.
Well, here's what I was gonna pose the philosophical question. When does just an ordinary podcast become a great one? Oh, did you see what I did there, Chuckster?
That was so brutal right there.
When the great one joins us in the Steam Room. Wayne Gretzky is here, man. It's good to see you. Great to have you part of the family.
Thank you.
And here's, look, our only rule on the Steam Room is that you keep your towel on.
Trust me, I will. And I want you to know, it's so nice of you to introduce me nicely, because Chuck's called me for 20 years the pretty good one. Just so you know.
He's the average one.
Yes. Hey, so how does it feel to have a real job? I mean, you've been retired for a long time. How's it clocking in 9 to 5 every day now?
You know what? My mother-in-law's 100. And
Wow.
When this all came about, she said, "You're a young man. You need to do something every day." And I kind of looked at her and I said, "You know what? You're right. That's how you stay young, stay active, stay busy." I got to be honest with you. I knew I was going to like this, and everybody who knew me said, "You're going to have so much fun." It's been more fun than I thought it was going to be, and I knew I was going to have a great time doing it. I'm loving it, and as you guys all know, the people here at Turner are all so nice, and
That's because you knew.
No.
Wait. Don King would say it's trickeration. Wait till you're 3.
Hey, year 32 here. So, and I can tell you, you're right. You're absolutely right. And so it's not really a 9 to 5 job, however. What time did you walk out of the studio last night?
It's kind of a 5 till 9 a.m. job.
Yeah.
So, we're loving it because, my goodness, we're watching hockey. And we've been so lucky the first 2 nights that we've worked, the games have been really good. I think, and I don't know how the basketball guys compare, but I know the hockey guys are so energized that we have fans back.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. Can you imagine playing games and looking in the stands? It'd be like practicing every day.
Yeah.
You just don't have the same energy. And I give the hockey guys credit. They played incredibly hard during the pandemic in the bubble.
Yeah.
And, I felt more sorry for the Canadian teams because they were in a real bubble. They couldn't go to a grocery store. Their wives couldn't go shopping. They were in a real bubble. Now, in the U.S., there were some places that was a little bit more open. So it was a little bit different in each country, right? But I give these guys credit. Now, with the fans in there, they're even playing harder and better. It's been wonderful.
Well, I see that to me is so interesting what you said, because I thought this was a chance to be a turning point in sports.
Right.
Because I think the fans and the players over time have gotten separated.
Right.
I think there's some jealousy among the fans because the players are making a lot of money. I think the players have started to, because of social media and different aspects of the media on television, they've kind of like, I don't want to be close to the fans.
Right.
But I think during the pandemic, we learned one thing. Sports really suck without fans.
Oh,
like,
man.
I couldn't imagine, and the point you were talking about, I couldn't imagine how to get myself motivated especially you're talking a 2-month period. I mean, I thought the NBA did a fabulous job of pumping in music and things like that. And even us in the studio, I'm like, man, that would be weird to play, especially for a big game.
Yeah.
No, really, excuse me, I said the other way. Like, everybody's excited for the big games.
Game 1 and Game 2. How's that?
Yeah. So I think you're a point, but I'm hoping that now we're like, man, we really need each other. Because I don't confuse the fans with social media idiots or talking heads on television who are trying to get hot takes.
Right.
So there's actually some real fans. Like we're taping this thing now. I watched that New York Knicks Boston Celtic game last night, and man, it was so exciting and so much fun. So I'm glad to have the fans back. I agree with you.
Yeah, and it's so important. And as you said, I think we've learned that the fans need the athletes, and the athletes need the fans. And one of the things I also think we've learned, and I don't know if everyone agrees with this, but during this pandemic, which has been really tough and hard for everyone, but for some people it was even harder. Now we're going through, I think that the fans have, as you said, they look at the athletes and they see how much money they make. And they make a ton of money, but they don't see the stress and the pressure that goes with being a professional athlete. And now some of these athletes who have come out and said they have mental stress, I think that the fans are giving them the benefit of the doubt because of the pandemic. And they're looking at them saying, okay, I don't know if I agree with this totally, but I understand it more today because of what we went through with the pandemic.
You know, I want to touch on that a second because you played a long time and I played a long time. And I played with some guys who, and I've said this is two of my biggest regrets. And number one, I didn't stress education more when I was in college.
Right.
I wish I'd have told the guys that we really need to get that education. It worked out for me, but didn't work out for them. That's my biggest regret. But my second biggest regret is now that this mental health stuff is coming out, playing with guys, and we used to make fun of those guys, like, this dude got some issues.
Can't handle the pressure.
Yeah, but now I'm like, we should have got that guy help.
Yeah.
So you played, you ever play with guys you're like, because like we're not psychiatrists.
No.
We're stupid jocks. And you play with guys, hey, listen, they good players, but they got a screw loose. And you like used to joke about it behind their back.
Yeah.
So you ever think about that now?
Yeah. Listen, when I played in Edmonton especially, there's two ends of the pendulum. I dropped out in 11th grade to turn professional as a 17-year-old. And I played with a guy who went through 6 years of university and became a real doctor. And he has a practice in Edmonton now, and he was a 5-time champion. And so there's a different sort of mindset with each guy. But we in Edmonton, and I give the organization, the ownership, and the coaching staff and general manager at that time, we were one of the first sports teams probably that hired a true psychiatrist or psychologist in the early 80s. And I think it really benefited our entire team because you came to an understanding of what some guys were going through. Because when you were a kid, you know, you're growing up and playing sports, and you could see who played better under pressure, who didn't excel under pressure. And as Charles said, we would look at it and say, gosh, this guy's got a screw loose. How can he not handle this? And I've said this before, I loved watching George Brett go up to bat. The bigger the game, the bigger the moment, the more at ease he seemed to be. Yeah. It was pretty unique, right? And he thrived on that. And for other guys, they just couldn't handle the stress and the pressure of it. Knowledge is so important in life and in sports, and we've come to an understanding now that there are athletes that just the stress and pressure is tough for them to deal with.
When was the first time you heard yourself described as the great one?
10 years old. And I was so mad. I remember reading the article, and the guy who wrote the story came down to do a story on me. And he said, you know, in hockey, they have Mr. Hockey, they have the Golden Jet, players of that caliber. And I'm 10 years old thinking, how can you compare me to those guys? I'm 10 years old, right? And he said, I'm going to name him the Great One. And I got it when I was 10 years old. And I can remember trying to stop it, my dad trying to stop it, and it continued on. Now, none of my teammates called me the Great One ever. The good one here told me. And I have
what
more.
What did they call you in the locker room?
So I have more nicknames than any probably athlete ever. So in the locker room, I was called Mr. Douglas because I used to check in under my middle name in all the hotels. So all my teammates thought it was funny. So they call me Mr. Douglas. Mark Messier would always call me Mr. Wonderful, which I thought was a cool name. And I was on a plane flight one time from New York to San Francisco. And it was one of those flights where the stewardesses kind of panicked and started running to the back of the plane. And I thought, oh, my God, this is the end. And they came back, and I'm like, is everything okay? And she goes, no, everything's fine with the plane. I think somebody back there is having a heart attack. And they went running back to the back of the plane. She comes back, and I go, is everything okay? She goes, yeah, he's just having some anxiety. He's okay. And she goes, is anybody up here a doctor? And so I hit the call button because I'm an honorary doctor. I go, ding. And she goes, really? And I go, yeah, and I'm an honorary doctor. So She goes, "That's not funny." And I said, "Well, my goodness, I wouldn't have said it if I thought the guy was really in trouble." And so I was telling the guys on the golf course, and so everybody in the golf world calls me Doc. So I have too many nicknames, put it that way.
Nice move, Mr. Douglas. That was really smooth. Yeah, Chuckster, I'm going to throw a couple of numbers out.
Okay.
Because this is pretty amazing, just looking at your career, Wayne. So, and if you're not a hockey fan, look, total assists and goals, total points, okay? So you add those up, get your total points. So Wayne, our guest here, Wayne Gretzky, is the NHL's leader in goals, assists, and total points.
Yes.
Obviously.
For now, it's probably going to come to an end.
For now, you say.
Yeah.
But the amazing thing about your assist number is you had more assists in your career than anybody else has ever had total points.
But
That's
and you know what's kind of funny about that is that, you know, I grew up and I really enjoyed being a playmaker.
Yeah.
Kind of like Steve Nash did in basketball, right?
right.
I played 1 year of high school basketball. I wasn't good enough to make junior varsity or varsity. I played freshman team. And they called me the biggest ball hog in the history of basketball because all I could see was that net. And I would just shoot and shoot. And they would say to me, "Why can't you see the court and pass like you do in hockey?" And I would say, "Because I just want to score."
That's hilarious.
I know. And I didn't make many, but I took the most shots every game.
So you want Alex Ovechkin to surpass your record?
Yeah, I think it's
you
good for
want
hockey.
him to?
Yeah, I think it's good for hockey. You know, some people don't believe me, but my friends and the people I know in my inner circle, I've been saying this forever. It's only great for the sport. What he did as a player and what I did as an athlete, nobody can take away. I'm really proud of it. And I know how hard I worked to get to that level, same as Chuck. But if he can do it, it's only good for our game. And we want to grow the game. We want to get bigger. And by him surpassing it is going to make our sport better.
He's got, what, 734?
Yeah.
You've got 894. I mean, is this realistic?
Oh, yeah,
That he's
because the next 2 years are big for him.
Yeah.
Because the older you get, the harder it becomes, right? But I think if he can put up 45 this year and 45 next year, he's got a really legitimate chance. And when I broke Gordy's record,
Your idol,
yeah,
by the way.
And I remember saying to my dad, in some ways I feel guilty. This is not right, because he played in a different era, right? I played in the right era, I admit it. And he goes, "You know what? Gordy is so proud of this, that you make sure when somebody comes along and breaks your record, that you feel as proud of him as Gordy does of you." And I always remembered that. And then I said, well, if this happens, I want to be treated like Gordy and Colleen Howe. The Kings flew him around on a private jet to follow me. I hope Mr. Leona sends that jet for Janet and I so we can fly around.
So, you know, and I believe him.
Yeah.
Because I've said this before. Wayne and Tom Brady are the two most humble GOATs superstars I've ever been around. Like, you would never know who he was. Like, he's just like one of the guys. And that's the one thing. That's the two things. Like, because you know I'm a sports junkie.
Yeah.
And I've asked hockey guys about Wayne privately. They're like, "Oh, he's always one of the guys." Everybody know he's Wayne Gretzky, but like, no, he made you feel like one of the guys. And I've asked my football friend, they're like, and I saw James Harrison, who I'm a big fan of. He says, "Yeah, when I got traded to New England, I wanted to hate Tom Brady, but you know what? This dude was so nice and so great to me." I was like, now I'm mad. I like this dude. And so people talk about Wayne and Tom the same way. Like, they are so humble, and like they like, but they go out of their way to be one of the guys, and that's a very honorable trait. Because I've been around superstars before. I'm not gonna call any names.
But
How did you maintain that balance and not?
My
and
dad
not
would
get,
hit me over the head.
Yeah.
But I would say this: one, that's why I'm enjoying the show so much, because it's fun. It's like being in the locker room. And, as we go along here, we're going to get even that much more comfortable with each other.
Right.
And I remember when I was talking about getting into this, I said, who's ever on this has to be somebody I know, because that person's got to be able to give it to me, because that's what makes the show.
Yes.
You can't have somebody who doesn't know me that's intimidated to say something negative about what I'm wearing or what I'm saying or arguing with me. So that's been a great thing about our show so far. And secondly, I don't remember Julius Erving or Gordie Howe or Bobby Orr ever being called the GOAT. When did this GOAT thing start? Because sometimes I'm like, how old am I that I'm a GOAT?
Well, because I think,
I know it's a respect factor.
Yeah,
but it just recently started in the last few years.
Yeah, but when people talk about the GOAT, it's a tremendous compliment.
I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, what is a GOAT?
It goes back to
my kids had to
Ali.
tell me.
It goes back to Ali, but there's like every sport because, okay, let's take golf. There's a lot of great golfers.
Right.
But the greatest of all time, the GOAT, is
Tiger. And that's no disrespect to Jack Nicklaus or Arnold Palmer or Gary Player. Like, because there's a lot of great players, But you think about the NBA. We're doing the 75th anniversary now. Mm-hmm. But think about who's actually, the two most important figures are Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. They saved the NBA.
They changed the sports world.
Yeah, they changed. So those two guys to me are the most important people. And I love both of those guys, what they did for me and my family. But then Michael, Kobe, LeBron, and now Giannis. There's been a lot of great players, but that's only going to be four guys who gonna move the needle. And that's no disrespect to all the other guys. But there are certain guys, like in Wayne's sport, he talk about Mr. Howe. Yeah, in Philly we had Barbara Clark and those guys, the Broad Street Bullies.
I used to, you know what? When I was watching hockey as a teenager, when the Atlanta Flames were down here, Tom Lysiak and that crew, Jacques Richard was their first pick, but I used to go to those games and I'd see Dave Schultz and Bob Kelly, the Hound, and these and some of these.
Boom Boom Jefferon was coaching.
Boom Boom was coaching. Yeah, I mean,
those were lucky. I got to play one game in Atlanta.
Yeah,
I played one game in the Omni.
Did you really?
Yes, and the game I played, the arena was sold out, not because of me. I was an 18-year-old kid. Nobody knew who I really was. It was Jim Craig's first NHL game after he won a gold medal.
Wow.
And it was the most amazing thing to look in the stands, and it was all American flags. It was like being in the Olympic Games, right?
Right.
So I got one game, and the atmosphere was over the top. So I had a special night here.
That's where I got my love of the game of the game back in those Atlanta Flames days.
Can you do that Rain Man thing?
What's that? Yeah.
I got a friend, Roy Green, and I hate giving Roy a compliment.
Remembering everything?
Everything.
I can remember, I had this guy come up to me one day, and he said, I played against you once when I was 10 years old. And I said to him, okay, what team were you on? And he told me the team, Detroit Slazers. And I said, oh, you guys wore blue and green uniforms. We beat you 9-1. I got 8 goals, and your goalie was left-handed. And he goes, I was the goalie.
That must have been the day they hung the great one on you when you were 10.
That was the year. But if Janet would call me and say, pick up tomatoes on the way home from practice, I couldn't remember.
See, my friend Roy, who I love like a brother, like we'll be playing golf, and we'll be sitting around drinking some beers after the round, and guys will be saying, well, what you shoot? Because, and he's like, and I was like, I don't remember what I shot. And he says, well, the first hole you had a 4, second hole you had a 6. And I'm like, he can go through 18 holes.
Let's back that up. You had a 4?
Okay.
Hey, thank you very much.
Maybe Roy does. Maybe he's not that
You're
memorable.
really easy.
You said that was a layup.
Yeah, that was the only, let's see, on the front, the only hole you didn't have a snowman was the 5th. He took a 7
No,
there.
but I've seen him play now. He's
really
yeah,
picked it
and
up.
Charles can attest to this. People don't realize when we go to charity golf tournaments and golf events, everyone looks at us and says, oh, they're an athlete. They should be a good golfer. And there's more pressure on us on the golf course.
Oof.
And that's how you get nervous, and that's how you stress out. And that's what some days I go, why am I doing this?
Hey, let me tell you something. And I tell people this, once you hit the first person, the day is over.
Yeah, because you can hit 4 or 5 in one day.
Especially like when you play with pros, when you play like at a pro-am, and these fools are standing right here.
Yeah,
like they're watching.
Like they're watching like a real pro.
No, I'll be playing with Dustin and Pebble. And I go, are you guys kidding? I'm not Dustin. Get out of the way.
Yeah.
We played together one time in Tahoe, and it was the last hole, and him and I were 58 and 59 out of 60. okay? I hit my last ball into this tree, and it sticks in the tree, right? So he comes walking over. I go, Chuck, my ball's up there. And he knocks it out of the tree, right? And he goes, it's a good thing you're not playing with Scotty Hamilton. I said, maybe not. Maybe just keep the ball.
Hey, what's it? So how has your golf game improved, or how has it changed? Because, and for you folks who don't know, Dustin Johnson is about to be your son-in-law because
get used to saying that.
Paulina and Dustin are going to be married in April.
Ernie, that is so weird for me. My daughter just got married.
Yeah.
Right.
And for the last 3 or 4 years, I say, hey, how's Ilya doing? And then from now, she corrects me. She says, I said, how's Ilya doing? She said, you mean my husband?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I forgot that. He did get married.
Yeah.
So has he helped your game or has he hurt your game?
Listen, one thing about Dustin, he's a savant. The year he won the Masters, savant in golf, the year he won the Masters on 13, the par 5, he hit it up to the right in the rough. So he was in the rough, and it was in November that year. So it was the course was wet. And when he won the tournament, we were on the airplane flying back to Florida, which was one of the great flights of my life with Dustin and her family and Claude Harmon. It was just wonderful. And I said to him, can I ask you one question? On 13, your 13, your second shot, you hit it about this high off the ground because he laid up in front of the creek there on the par 5. And I said, did you miss your shot? He goes, no. He said, I hit a 4-iron because I had mud on my ball and I wanted it to run through the grass and clean the ball off for my next shot. And I'm sitting there going, who thinks of that? Mm. We would have taken a 7-iron, hit it in the air, landed, had more mud on it, right?
Exactly.
So he really loves the game. I was sitting in the grill one day, and he knows I never go up to the range. I don't practice. I said, it's not going to change my game. I just want to go play, right? And so I said, go hit some balls. I'll watch some football when you come back. This older gentleman comes walking in, and he's in tears, one of the members. And I got, oh, my God, what happened out there? And he says to me, you don't understand. I had the greatest hour of my life. Dustin walked by me and said, sir, can I help you with your game? And he worked on my game for an hour. And that's who he is. He's a great kid. Wow. He's a wonderful guy. He loves the game of golf, and he knows a lot about it. But listen, I don't practice. I'm like Chuck. I just like to have fun, go out there and play with my buddies. I'm not going to get any better. Like you in basketball, like me in hockey, I know how hard we work to get there. I'm not going to work that hard to become a 4 handicap because I'm enjoying my life as 11 handicap, and I'm having fun.
What's the best thing about being a grandfather?
Oh, the love you get from your grandkids. As you know, when you have children, there's no better love than you have in bond and relationship. And when they're younger, you have that love and you try to keep them secure. And then when they get older, you become best friends. Yeah. And that makes it even much more fun. But you don't realize the bond you have with grandchildren until you have them. It's really, really unique and special. And I can give them all the candy they want, and I don't care.
No, I'm right there with you. Yeah. I got 4 grandkids. And you know what it points out to me too, Wayne, is that, look, you think at that point the amount of love you've got has really probably, it's already out there. You can't love any, and all of a sudden these grandkids come along, and it's like, man, the capacity in your soul to love is just mind-boggling. So there's always that in there, and you're right. Being able to spoil those kids like my parents did to my kids,
nothing like it.
Oh, it's tremendous.
Yeah.
You have one other unique thing with Ernie. Ernie got to work with his son.
Right.
How cool is it that you getting to work with your son here?
Yeah. You know what? I was telling Ernie earlier, I love baseball, and so I wanted to name my first daughter Gordy, and my wife nixed that. Well, I'm being honest. And I said, okay, I get to name my second one. So I named him Ty after Ty Cobb because I love baseball, right? He was my hockey guy. He loves hockey. Yeah. We do hockey camps all over North America. He's working with me here at Turner, and, he's one of my best friends, and I love it. And he's my son. He just had a little baby girl, and there's no better life than having family that you just... Oh my gosh, it's the best.
Well, tell me this baseball thing. How much you say you love it? How did this come about?
So when I grew up, I don't know. I was one of those kids that in April I threw my hockey equipment in the basement. I couldn't wait to play baseball. And in those days, the Blue Jays and the Expos were just starting to make traction in Canada, and baseball was just starting to come on. And then guys like Larry Walker, who just went in the Hall of Fame, kind of even took it to another level. In those days, Canada wasn't part of the draft. Paul Beeston, who was president of the baseball club at that time, came to my house. He offered me a $150,000 signing bonus. I was 16 years old. I was going to start in Winston-Salem. I was about to sign, and my dad grabbed the pen and said, "You're going back to 10th grade."
What position
that ended my baseball career.
What position were you playing?
Up there, I played shortstop and pitcher.
Yeah,
I loved
as
it.
the best athlete will do on a team.
But I loved it. I just loved the game. I love the thinking part of it, the fundamentals of the sport. I couldn't get enough of baseball.
So you come up in the National Hockey League, and you're not a big guy. Mm-hmm. Okay, what do you weigh? 150, 160 pounds when you're...
My first year, 145.
Yeah, and I read a couple of quotes. One, Dennis Potvin, a great defenseman for the Islanders, who said, trying to hit you was, or wrapping your arms was like trying to wrap your arms around fog. And
every now and then my friends call me I'm foggy.
Yeah, and the other thing goes back to what you were talking about, Chuck, about being able to excel, but doing it with grace and with dignity and with and just not letting it change you. But he said, when he's playing against you, and he hadn't built up any kind of a hatred for you, and opponents never did. There was never anything like, "Oh man, that Gretzky." I can't. And he said, it'd be like running Gandhi into a corner.
You know what? I always tell people this. I knew when Dennis Potvin was drinking Gatorade on the bench because he was the one guy I feared because he was good enough and he was agile enough and he was big enough that he was the one guy I thought, okay, this guy can really hurt me. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, and that he was a clean player, I got through it. Yeah. But, it's just part of what you do. I played out of fear. I wasn't a big guy, and you play hard, you play fast. And my dad told me at a young age, moving target is tougher to hit than a target that's standing still. And that's kind of what I live by.
You reference your dad a lot. Yeah. I know what he meant to you. Yeah. Can you kind of explain to our podcast what your dad taught you and meant to you?
Well, he was so proud. His parents were immigrants in the 1920s. And he was so proud of the fact of being born and raised in Canada. Both his mom and dad barely spoke English for 30 years. So he loved the fact that he got this great opportunity to be in North America and live a normal life, live a hard life, but one with rewards. And he was a representative of the country because we're a blue-collar country, the country of Canada. Mm. And he was genuine. My dad was rich in love, not rich in money. And people grasped to that. They looked at him as, okay, that's what our mentality is as a country. He had a brain aneurysm in 1991. He should never have got through it. He had 2 9-hour surgery on his brain. He was 5 years basically in clinics and all that goes with that. And if you saw him in the 6th year, you would never know that he had a brain aneurysm. Never really talked about it. And so I remember I called my mom one time, and my godmother and his sister lived in Vancouver. And I said, "Oh, is Dad there?" And she goes, "No, he's flying from Toronto to Vancouver today to go spend a week with his sister." And I said, "Well, who's flying with him?" She goes, "Nobody." I said, "Well, when he gets there, what happens if he gets confused and lost?" And she said, "He's the most famous guy up here. Somebody will get him to that house." And that's the way my mom looked at it. So he was a special man.
Yeah. And he got you started. I mean, did he build the rink at your house?
Well, he used to take me to outdoor parks and ponds, and I'd skate for hours and hours. I don't know why. I just loved it, right? And finally he said one day, "It's too cold. I'm going to build a rink in the backyard, and I can sit in the kitchen and drink hot tea and watch him skate for hours." And that's how the rink was built. Simple as that.
And you called it Wally's
Rink.
Wally's Rink.
Yeah, it was pretty special.
Yeah, and you lost him. I mean, you lost him this year, right?
It was listen, as I said earlier, everybody's suffered through this pandemic. It's been hard for the whole world, and some people harder than others. When my dad got to the end, we were called and said, he doesn't have much time. You better get up here. And so we were fortunate enough to get up there as a family, and we sat around, and he spent 21 days, he kept battling. My dad's a very strong Christian, and he believes in God and believes in life after death. But he loved life so much, he held on. And the minister and the doctor would tell me every day, I think he's got about 24 hours. And after 2 weeks of hearing this, I said, you don't know my dad. He's not going anywhere. So it was tough for all of us, but he as any parent, if you lose a parent, it's the worst thing in the world. It's just horrible.
But I think it speaks to your heart too. You've relocated to St. Louis now, right? Mm-hmm. Janet's mom is 100.
Yeah, and I said to her last year, and her mom 2 years ago, because she wanted to, went and passed her driver's license. Now, we don't let her drive, but that's how together she is. She just wanted to prove to people she could do it, right? Yeah. So she lives there, and we talked about it. We wanted to spend more time with her. So by moving to St. Louis and coming with that sort of idea, that led to this Turner situation in Atlanta. I couldn't do this if I was living in California. It's too hard to travel back and forth that far. But being in St. Louis and then spending time in Florida with the grandkids, it's an easy hop, skip, and a jump. So everything's timing, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm so excited about it, and I'm so happy, and we're thrilled that we get to spend more time with Janet's mom.
It's a good life, isn't it?
It's a great life. And my dad told me as a kid, I remember one time I said, I wish I was that guy. And I was like 8 years old, and my dad said, you don't ever wish to be somebody else. You be yourself.
Wow.
Chuckster, wrap it up for us. Have you got one more for Wayne?
I do. I think it's hard for us in the United States. Can you tell us what hockey means in Canada?
Oh, I'll tell you how big hockey is in Canada, and you guys will appreciate this. The national sport of our country is box lacrosse, but nobody would ever get that answer right. The sport of basketball was invented by a Canadian.
Yes.
Hockey is a religion. You get married, you go to church, you have kids, and you watch hockey or you play hockey. That's what it means to our country. It's everything. It's just people live and die it. And they love all sports, but they just love hockey.
My last thing is, is it Connor Bedard? Is that the kid's name?
New young boy?
Yeah, who's 16 years old,
special.
And he will be the next thing in the NHL when he works his way up through the ranks.
Can I say one thing about that?
He's got a couple of years to go, but he's going to be good.
That's not piggybacking on, not to suck at what you're talking about. That's the one really thing that annoys me about people on television nowadays.
What?
Comparing guys to all-time greats. Like every year I'm watching the NBA draft, they're like, can you compare him to somebody?
Who's his comp?
Who's his comp? I'm like, he's not. They're like, Karl Malone. I'm like, Karl Malone's one of the greatest power forwards ever. He reminds me of Magic Johnson. So I wish we would let these kids be kids.
Yes. And the reason I bring his name up is because you reached out to him, and he thought he was being pranked. He didn't realize when the phone rang and here's the number he doesn't recognize, picks it up, and it's you on the other end. And he said he was speechless, and then he was thinking, somebody's doing this to me. But what was your? I think it's a really
him though, Ernie.
That's
a
good
perfect
message.
example.
It's for somebody like you to reach out and you talk about growing the game with records being broken and that kind of thing. But this is also like just handing down to the next generation.
People always see the great side of it. And this kid is great, and he's a wonderful young man. But they don't understand the stress and the pressure that this young man has. And I went through it. Mm-hmm. And I just called him, reached out to him, and said, hey, listen, congratulations, you're a phenom. Good for you. But the biggest thing is enjoy it and work hard every day and just love the game. And that was really the message I wanted to send to him. 14 years old.
Yeah.
You're young, right?
Yeah.
My dad always said, always back to my dad, by the time you figure out what I'm telling you is right, your kids are going to think you're wrong.
Wayne, that's so profound what you're saying, because people see you on television. Not you. I'm talking about when you are great at a sport. They see you on television. They see you how much money you make.
Yeah.
They have zero idea how much stress, because not only are you trying to be great at your sport,
Right.
you actually have a normal life too.
Yeah. When you leave the arena.
Yeah, when you leave the arena.
You
And
have friends and family and kids.
and if they got stuff going on, it's dumped on
And
you.
I said this, and I meant this in the nicest way. To be a good athlete, you have to be selfish. And I mean that in a good way, because when you're playing, that's your life.
Yeah.
So the people around you, your wife, your parents, your kids, your best friends, they have to understand. So to me, the best athletes are the most selfish guys because they love their sport.
This has been
Awesome.
yeah. In a word, it has been.
Steam room's getting hot.
We know why. We know why they call you the Great One.
Thank you so
And,
much.
and
I had a ball with you guys. You guys are wonderful.
we appreciate you. Great to have you as part of the family.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and great to have you as the first guest of season 3 of
Yes.
the Steam Room, which will
We're glad you kept
continue.
your towel on too.
Yeah, we will continue with the
Trust me, I
always
ain't taking it
popular
off.
Chuck's answering machine when we come back.
Chuck's answering machine. I love that one.